Welcome to today's episode of the 2020 Awards podcast. Today we're going to be talking with filmmaker Jason Bognacki about Dario Argento's 1975 chiller, Deep Red.
Have killed, and you will kill again. There's a child singing in that house. Death. Blood. Our blood. Ah! I'm scared. I'm scared.
Our guest today is Jason Bognacki. Jason is a filmmaker based out of Hollywood, California. He's worked on several short films, many of which are influenced by the Italian giallo. Am I saying that right? How do I say that?
Giallo.
Giallo. Like Jello.
Yeah.
So like Bill Cosby.
Or Jolly.
Jolly?
Yeah.
Okay. Jolly movement. Jason's first feature film. Well, I guess it's not. Well, you had another film.
Yeah, I mean, I had another long-form film piece of live music and live cinema called Loma Linda that played at Sundance Film Festival and Coachella, and but I wouldn't consider that really a feature. That's more of an art piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this one is called Another.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about Another?
Another is it's a pretty wild and crazy film about a young girl who, sorry, I'm a little freaked out.
I always hate pitching my movies.
Yeah.
It's always such like, well, what is it? It's like, well, to me, it's about 1,000 things, but
I guess the easiest way to describe it would be it's a coming of age story of a young girl who she's basically the devil's daughter and doesn't really know it. And through a sequence of events and the supernatural, it comes out that she's born under a curse, like a blood curse in her family.
Now, yesterday, your wife, Elena, who's also the producer of the film, at the Q&A said it was inspired by motherhood. Is that true?
Absolutely, and the fear of parenting, like just before production and during the writing process, we found out we were pregnant, and the fear sets in, and are we to be good parents, and are these kids going to be cursed to be just like us? And so I think a lot of that went into the underlying story of the evil witch mother and some of the darker family undertones. You know, we let our imagination go a little wild.
Yeah, this is like the craziest film about parenting since Eraserhead I've seen.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of everything in there.
Now, so I asked you to pick a film that has influenced or inspired you, and picked Argento's Deep Red. When I saw the trailer for Another, I was kind of expecting you to go with something like that. A lot of the people I talked to, when we did an episode yesterday on a documentary, and the director wanted to talk about The Breakfast Club, so it was like completely far diverse from the subject. But this seems like you made a movie that was very definitely influenced by
yeah. I chose. I mean, Deep Red probably isn't my favorite giallo film, but I think it was important to me, like seeing it for the first time in high school and just being in awe by the style and the music and the horrific murder scenes that they had, and just really being influenced and inspired by that whole genre, and then that movie unlocking all these other great Italian horror films. It's really shaped my early filmmaking career. Yeah,
when did you first see it?
I want to say like junior year or senior year of high school.
Yeah.
So pretty early on.
Yeah.
But
that's also a trippy time to see movies, because you're kind of exposed to what your parents would take you to, and then all of a sudden you start to find out there's all these other movies out there that are like really off the hook, and just like, whoa, people behave like this. What's this all about?
Yeah, we had a few friends. We'd have like mini movie marathons and in the parents' basement.
Right.
We'd run all these wild and crazy movies based on the crazy album, or not the album art, the cover art.
The cover, yeah.
The cover art at the time. Be like, wow, what is this one going to be about?
Right. So now, with another, you also shot that. You did everything on this movie.
Yeah.
Like, your name was all over the credits on
Yeah,
this.
we actually made up a few fake names to fill out.
Did you really?
Yeah, because I'm like, I didn't want to go. I mean, I love Vincent Gallo, but I didn't want to go Vincent Gallo.
Right,
like,
yeah.
with all the credits. But yes, we made up a few names. But yeah, I shot it, I edited, I did some of the effects. Yeah, it was a race all the way up to the point of finishing and getting it on the screen.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about shooting it. One of the things that I really liked about the film is that you really kind of captured that 70s era look. What did you do to do that? Is that something you did on set, or is that a post process?
I mean, a little bit of both. We didn't really have that much of a crew, so lighting, getting it right. We took our time a little bit with that, and it was shot with Epic 4K cameras, and we shot in RAW, so pushing and pulling the image around was easy to do in post, and I think that really helped with the look. But I'm all into crazy lenses and vintage cameras, and so there's some of that influence in there, and I have an eye for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now, I mean, some of the stuff even looked like you'd fog the film, which obviously with digital you can't. But,
yeah.
I mean,
there's certain ways that you can get kind of that low contrast kind of look, but yeah, there's a few scenes I used some low contrast filters to get the kind of like faded film look.
Yeah.
But it's much. I mean, you can do certain things in post, but certain things like you really want to go the old way to get certain looks.
Yeah. No, good job, man. I thought it looked great. So, tell me, is horror your thing? Is that what you're like? If you could spend the rest of your life making films, this is what you want to do? I
mean, I really like horror because horror and fantasy and the genre films is because anything's possible. Like, you want a crazy witch mother who bursts a demon from her mouth, and whatever crazy odd things that we want to put in there to shock audiences. It's the sky's the limit. But I see myself at this point just kind of experimenting and learning the craft. Do I see myself doing other things besides genre? Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of move into Deep Red. So, how do you describe this movie? Is it a horror film? Or is it?
I think it's more of a thriller.
Yeah.
It's like it's set up and has a great kind of twisting mystery, and that kind of unfolds. And the protagonist is a musician who witnesses a murder, and he's trying to. At the same time, he's fighting for his life, and he's trying to figure out who's behind these killings that are kind of seemingly happening all around him. His struggle to figure that out, but there's a lot of interesting twists. Like they call Argento, what is it, the Hitchcock with garlic, which I always thought was great. But he always manages to, even seeing his films now, like to shock and surprise you with just his imagination and how he goes about like setting up scenes. And I mean, I haven't seen a lot of his movies, but now they're being now they're being reissued on Blu-ray, so I think we're gonna dive back into him.
Yeah,
there's so much great stuff, and he's influenced so many other filmmakers. Like seeing like the movie Insidious and seeing direct shots that are like, oh my god, that's totally from from Deep Red, or I think a few people have paid homage to Deep Red. Also, not Scream. What was the other? Saw.
Oh, okay.
The little jigsaw character.
Right.
There's a character like that in Argento films, and the little bike when he rides out on the bike.
Oh, okay.
It's very
well. There's kind of one of those characters in Deep Red.
Yeah.
And that thing is scary as hell.
Yeah,
that thing,
scary.
That thing. Yeah. There's basically, what is that character? Is he a police detective?
In Deep Red?
Yeah. The guy with the beard. He's on.
Oh yeah. He's in a few of his films.
Excuse me. I wasn't quite clear on a lot of the relationships to people, and
yeah,
because he was on stage at the beginning with the psychic, right?
Yeah. He's like, is he the mayor? Is he the town constable?
Yeah.
But there's a few different cuts of that movie, and it's interesting to see when. That's what I really like about his movies too. Kind of the open-ended narrative a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of plays out like a soap opera a little bit. It's like, oh, this guy's a psychic, or this woman's a psychic, but she's also some other crazy character, and
right.
the cycling of the voices. I love how like a lot of that stuff he shot with no sync sound.
Well, I was going to ask about that and then I noticed, did you guys do something like that in another?
No.
There's a scene in the hospital parking lot,
right,
where that seemed like it was maybe dubbed.
No, I think in the playback there may have been a few sync issues. But
it wasn't a sync thing. It was just like, it's kind of the quality of it. Because I was going to say, one of the things about watching Deep Red that I noticed is like there's something very disconcerting about that dubbed soundtrack, and that's very off-putting. It's like,
there's a few scenes where whenever people are possessed in the film that I did do a few things of slowing things down and putting things out of phase in the speaker a little bit, so it's like even within a conversation someone will have a line that's really, really slow, and
right, yeah,
and then it'll come back out, and then it'll be like more real time, like when the mother's like really kind of trying to pour her heart out a little bit to her daughter, but then it goes back into so I think I took some influence from that.
I was just wondering, because like there's something, because I always tell people, like when they're like, hey, any advice? I'm making a movie, what should I do? It's like, hire a sound guy, because I think your ear is so less forgiving than your eye, but you can use that to your advantage too. So it's like, you can take something that seems like, oh, it's just two people talking, but if it's dubbed and there's just something about it that's a little not quite right, it's like, what, it gives the scene a certain unease that's very simple to do. So I was wondering if you had tried to do that on purpose, because there's just something about that scene in the parking lot. It seems like, what is going on here? Like they seem like, and then it was like, oh, it's the audio. Like it seemed like the sound design, there was no other sound, yet you were kind of in a busy part of town, so.
Right, yeah, I don't think we did any overdubbing in that scene. I think maybe I phase shifted one of the voices, but that scene was actually pretty funny. It was like the very, very end of the day, and we were, the memory card was all the way filled up. I'm like, okay, guys.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, okay, guys. I'm like, we have 4 takes to get this before,
right.
we're out of space. But they pulled it together, and it was good.
One of the things that jumps out in Deep Red is the score.
Yeah, the goblins. The
goblins, yeah. Now, I just saw the Todorovsky documentary, and I think he was trying to get them to do the score for Dune, and I'd never heard of them before.
Right.
And it was like, oh, the goblins. Wait a minute, this sounds.
Yeah, they just got back together and they're touring.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah, which they came to LA, but with being new parents, we couldn't go. I really was bummed out. I think maybe they'll come back around, but yeah, they're totally. And I think they play clips from all the old Italian movies. That
really?
Did. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And they play it live.
Yeah.
Like totally.
It's a crazy soundtrack. I mean, it sounds sort of like a cross between Halloween and The Exorcist, but then with like a prog rock.
Yeah, played by a prog rock band.
Yeah. It was really bizarre. I was just like, wow, what is going on here? And it was just kind of like when I would come in and come out, it seemed sort of like, not quite random, but it was just, oh, I wasn't expecting that here.
Yeah, it's like traveling music. Like he's trying to figure something out, and that bass line comes in. It's like boom, 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 boom.
Right.
It's like, okay,
that's
I'm
right.
here.
Yeah, it's kind of had a Shaft vibe to it too. It's like Superfly is going to come help him.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about some of the. Like I said, there's that crazy doll that comes out, which scared the hell out of me because first of all, it's a doll, so
Yeah, it's totally random. Like the little doll just comes out.
It's wearing a tuxedo, and it has this weird march as it comes forward.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it makes sense. Maybe it's, it's the past coming in. It's like, because in the opening scene, there's all the childhood references to the mom killing the dad in front of the kid and the toys. So maybe that's like... And then there's the other scenes with the mom character, like playing with the dolls. Like she's, schizophrenic, crazy, playing with the dolls, like reenacting the murder. So maybe that's like plays to that theme. But
well, there's a lot of dolls. People come in and they find like a doll hanging from a noose, which for me that would be a little unsettling to walk in on. I read, so I think I've seen maybe one or two other Argento films. So I was doing a little bit of reading, and I read that he likes the murder scenes to be something that people can relate to, because most people can't relate to being shot by a gun. Makes sense. But there's a gruesome scene in the bathtub where she's the author of the book that the neighbor's trying to track down. And, well, why don't you tell us what happens in there?
And the killer, well, she's running a hot bath, and the killer, I think he takes her face and puts it in the hot scalding water.
Yeah, well, it's just hot water. There's no... Yeah.
Yeah, and her face, it's all blistered and bubbled up and disgusting. And in her final moments of life, she writes on the steam in the wall, like the next clue of the... Right. to follow, which are all kind of seemingly almost random. Right. And but yeah, he pieces it together and it leads him to the next set piece. But there's a lot of really great set pieces in Profondo Rosso, how do you say it? Uh-huh. Deep red. Yeah.
So, well, all right, so this was one thing that I was like, wait a minute, I'm not sure why this is even a movie, because why is the neighbor take such an active... It's his... So the psychic is killed, and it's her neighbor who dives into this investigation. But why does he take such an active...
That's a good question. Well, I think, I mean, doesn't he kind of... I haven't seen it in a long time, but doesn't he kind of fear for his life? Like, his friend... Doesn't, like, one of his friends get killed, or...
I don't think so. I mean, he witnesses it.
He witnesses
but
it.
But at one point I was like, wait a minute, why is he like suddenly leading this investigation? Because it's funny you mentioned the Alfred Hitchcock with garlic, because I was like, well, this seems like it would make more sense if the police were a little bit more... I mean, the police kind of ask him a few questions, like, what were you doing here?
Yeah, the great thing about all Argento movies, the cops are always... complete buffoons.
Oh yeah.
And the cop in this was actually a little bit better than a lot of the cop characters.
But yeah, I just kept thinking like, oh well, it makes more sense if it had been a Hitchcock film. So it's funny you bring that up. If it had been a Hitchcock film, it definitely would have been like the wrong man had to prove himself innocent. So, but I was like, this guy seems to be taking an awful lot of interest in this case. So
yeah. Yeah. There's a certain disbelief with the giallos that you just kind of have to accept and kind of just go with. Yeah, it's more about the films are more about just the plot or the mystery. It's more about being immersed in the great visuals and the dreamy plot lines and just the amazing footage. Just remember like being in high school just watching that just awesome looking vintage footage, just everything just looked so cool, so great.
It was very lush.
Yeah
I mean, there's a great bit at the opening. I think it starts with a murder. You see, it's such a great opening. It's just you fades in, you're hearing this kind of childlike music, and on the shadows you're seeing somebody being stabbed, and then a scream, and a knife drops into frame, and then a kid walks into frame. And then it just cuts to like these red curtains, deep red curtains, and then we enter the theater where the psychic is on stage. But yeah, like those curtains were just, I don't know, it was kind of that whole theater had that lush vibe to it. And
Argento actually got really, really, I'm not sure if it's luck or... his dad was I think a TV producer or film producer, so he hooked him up with like great cinematographers. Like I think his cinematographer went on to shoot Apocalypse Now and like great music. Like he had the best of the best at that time to make his films. That's why he could afford to be a little kind of lax with his plot line sometimes, because this is the ingredients of the film were so rich that you give him a pass, I guess. But I'm really curious at the time, like how his films were received. If they were hated, or if his cult following grew over time. Yeah, no, that's always an interesting thing, because going back to Hitchcock, I know he was kind of lambasted, or lambasted. How do you say that? Yeah. He was kind of raked over the coal
at the time, and you know, it wasn't until kind of later, I think, that people were like, oh, wait a minute, these movies are really good. But I know this Deep Red has like a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I think it's because, I mean, we're joking about, you know, the plot line and everything, but I think this and maybe The Bird with the Crystal Plumage are his most narrative films. So I think, yeah, audiences gravitate towards those two the most. And Suspiria.
I think Suspiria is the one I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other one.
Yeah, which they're supposed to do a remake, but I think that's dead. I think it's dead now.
Yeah, I saw something about Romero was going to remake Deep Red.
Yeah, he was gonna pen the remake screenplay, and then I forgot who was gonna direct it, but yeah, it's dead in the water now.
Maybe you can direct it.
Woohoo! So I'll take it.
So, it's a very melodramatic, like, I guess the whole Giallo movement is very melodramatic. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I like about it. Is like, it's over the top, but it's taking itself really serious. So you're like, I don't know, am I supposed to be kind of laughing at this, or it has its own charm, like, you know, soap opera-esque.
It is very
kind of
soap
like
opera.
There's a disaster unfolding
in
front of you, and
the murders are very, very over the top.
Very over the top.
Yeah, the woman in the bathtub, and the other guy basically has his mouth repeatedly rammed into every corner object in the room, from a shelf to a table.
And the beheading with the elevator.
The beheading is awful.
Even when I see that now, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, no, I was kind of like, well, it's funny because the movie has a false ending, which is this guy, and even that was just like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel gratifying. You know, it's like, you know, this guy runs out, and basically the weirdest. And these are all the weirdest murders. They're all the weirdest murders. Yeah, it's like, you know, he doesn't get run over by the truck. He runs into the truck, falls down, and then there's like a strip of rebar hanging off the truck that just happens to be hooked, hooks his leg, drags him through the city, and then bashes his head as they turn the corner into the curb. So, and I was like, well, that was very awkward.
It's so strangely unsatisfying and anticlimactic.
Right, but then the real ending comes with the necklace getting caught, the woman's necklace getting caught in the elevator. It's just like, oh, God. It's like, oh, okay.
I really like how a lot of his movies, there's always like art that plays a role in it. Just like, I forgot the name of the one where the protagonist who witnesses the murder gets stuck in between these two closed doors in a art gallery, and he witnesses this horrible murder. But there's always elements like that of art in his films that I really kind of like in Deep Red, like the mother's face, like she's hiding in the painting. Yeah, and he's always recalling back. He's like, there's something different about this painting, right? And then he remembers back, and there she is.
Did you see her face in the painting the first time?
The first time. It was so long ago, but I think I did. I'm like, what was that?
Yeah, no, because I definitely, when I was watching, I was like, is that a person? Like, it's very strange because it's camera move that's following him, and then I think it's a mirror that we see her reflection in, but we see the reflection of this painting, and it's all these faces. It's kind of like E.T. hiding in Elliot's sisters.
Exactly.
You know, with the stuffed animals. But you see all these faces, and then there's one that, I don't know if she blinks or if her eyes move or something, but she's standing still, but there was enough that you kind of go, wait, what was that? and then you kind of forget about it until the end. Then when it comes back, I was like, oh, I did see a person in that shot. So
yeah, I think there's a few other instances where art plays a role, but I think, I may be remembering wrong, but I think Argento may have started as a painter, and then
that makes sense.
Then his dad got a hold of him.
Like, dad got a hold of him.
Yeah, he's like, you gotta
come hold this light while I.
Yeah. Then he grew up on the set.
What did his dad do? He was a TV producer.
I think he was a TV producer, or maybe even back then it was like stage, and then maybe transitioned to TV and film.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. I think that was his lineage.
Does the blood in all his movies look like tempera paint?
Yeah, like super charged red.
Right, yeah.
But I mean, that's the whole Argento thing of the colored lightings, which I don't know. I think it kind of dates it and sets it. I think maybe a lot of the directors that came after him took that, but it screams 80s to me. Like the colored gels, like the really red background, and I guess they use it a lot in Suspiria with greens and reds. And
you did some of that though in another.
A little bit, yeah. With
it's nice. I mean, it's like I feel like I do a little bit of lighting too, but I always go for a very naturalistic look. I think it's like it's kind of the thing where you have to like learn the rules to break them, you know. And so it's like I try to make things look pretty natural, but it's nice like to have some greens and reds and stuff in there. And
we most of it was actually lit naturally, but like the later scenes when she's in the witch's lair, the colors are just wild. It's like greens and yellows and oranges and just almost like putrid colors to show the kind of
well, that's the thing, is like now every movie has that. They figured out that Howard Johnson's teal and orange like pop against each other, and it's like
sickening.
Oh, it's like every movie. Every time I look at a trailer, it has that crazy colors palette, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, I was pulling film stills from another, and so it would just bring up a huge board of hundreds of film stills all laid out, and you can see how it transitions from like grays to blues to greens to oranges, and then back.
Was that intentional or
no? But it was interesting to see, like, just the psychology of color, just all there. Yeah, and it'd be cool to maybe analyze that a little bit more, just for my own personal shooting style. Yeah,
I find like that's something I'm still learning. Like I tend to focus more on story and directing and characters and whatnot, but you start to realize like, oh, well, okay, now I'm kind of getting a handle on that. Now I can start to focus more on color palettes and whatnot, and it's a whole other animal.
Yeah,
but it's something that's definitely worth getting under the belt too. So
yeah, because I mean, color correcting a certain way, it totally can change a scene.
Yeah,
really shape things. Just the unconscious perception that people have, like viewing color. It's really interesting. Interesting.
So, unfortunately, we are not going to get this out before your next screening, which is actually in a few hours. But and I know it is coming up in another festival, as you said. So people should be on the lookout for another. Do you have a Twitter handle where people can follow you?
I'm really bad with that. I think it's at another film for Twitter.
Okay.
Or you can just go to the website another-film.com.
Okay.
And there's links to YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, and that's the hub.
Okay, so another-film.com. Awesome. Well, thanks, Jason.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks for bringing it up. If you haven't seen Deep Red, everybody go check it out and beware that creepy doll. Until next time, remember it's never too late to start thinking about the past.
Dai, dimmi tu,